Local Justice, presented by Elrod Bobe Law Firm, serving our community since 1980. Here's your host, Attorney Ben Leader.
Welcome back to Local Justice. I'm Attorney Ben Leader with Elrod Pope Law Firm, and today I'm honored to be joined by Captain Jonathan Reed of the York County Sheriff's Office. Captain Reed leads the Criminal Investigations Division, which is responsible for investigating serious crimes, managing complex cases, and helping ensure that victims receive justice and that offenders are held accountable. With nearly 2 decades of experience working in high-risk operational environments, Captain Reed and his team play a critical role in some of the most significant investigations handled here in York County. Captain Reed, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Want to start out by just telling the viewers a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up? Where were you raised? And kind of what was your childhood like that ultimately led you to law enforcement?
Sure. So my family's originally from the Chicago area, but we moved here when I was around 10 years old. So this area is where I call home. Grew up in the Richburg area, spent most of my time in Rock Hill. So Rock Hill is essentially what I call home. My dad was in Christian ministry all of my life, so I kind of grew up knowing that I wanted to serve my community, had that instilled from a young age. And for me, the choice personally was either military or law enforcement, and I ultimately decided on law enforcement and applied for the sheriff's office. Was hired and then married a week later, so kind of had the 2 anniversaries kind of coinciding. And I've been there since the latter part of 2006, so about 19 and a half years, coming up on 20 years. Had an amazing career, lots of opportunities, got to do some great things, and have really enjoyed my time in law enforcement.
That's great. Congrats to you on a 20-year anniversary coming up
you.
on both fronts.
Yes, I'm excited about it. For some
right.
reason, 20 years to me sounds like I've done something, so I'm excited about 20 years.
That's impressive, and I'm always fascinated by how many folks at the York County Sheriff's Office have been around for so many years, and we've talked a lot about the culture over there, and I think that obviously plays a huge role in people wanting to spend their careers there and not just a stepping stone.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
What did you start out as? Tell us about kind of your early days at the Sheriff's Office and how you've kind of worked your way up the ranks along your journey.
Yep, so everybody that comes in as a deputy will start as a patrol deputy. That's pretty much standard. So I started in patrol, and I worked patrol for 9 years, primarily in the Rock Hill area, which is the District 3 area of the county. We have it broken up into 4 different districts. But I did rotate around to some of the other districts, so I was familiar with those as well, but primarily Rock Hill. And like I said, I did that for 9 years and really built the foundation of my law enforcement knowledge, tried to educate myself and kind of when I got to 9 years, I was making a decision on what I wanted to do. Did I want to move into a supervisory role? I was a field training officer. So I had that as potentially an option of applying for a sergeant role, or if I wanted to go into investigations. Those were kind of the 2 paths that I was trying to decide on. Ultimately had the opportunity to move to investigations in 2015, and so I went in. I was looking for at the time to be a financial crimes investigator. That was what I was really interested in, and so I came up there kind of under the premise that I was going to work some financial crimes. But I wound up landing in a different role. They had a need for sex crimes and homicide, violent crimes investigations, and so that's what I ultimately moved into and did that for about 6 years. Worked in investigations, doing sex crimes, homicide, worked quite a few homicides. And during that time, I was able to get promoted, so I moved into a lieutenant role where I supervised sex crimes and cybercrimes, which was kind of a new field for me.
Sounds like you've seen a little bit of everything throughout the journey.
Yep.
And then, was it 2022 you were promoted to captain?
Yeah, 2022, the sheriff at the time, Sheriff Tolson, looked at the responsibilities that were shared by the 4 captains at that time. The county had grown and the sheriff's office had grown, and so he was looking at the amount of reports and just the direct reports that is, and just the responsibilities that were held by each of the captains, and decided that he needed to spread that out a little bit. So he looked at creating a technical services division, which is comprised of all the labs. We have technically 5 forensic labs, DNA, drugs, firearms. We have our crime scene services, and they have a crime scene lab and digital forensics. And then I also managed IT and evidence. So in February of 2022 is when I had the opportunity to move into that role and did that for about 3.5 years. And that was, honestly, that was my first experience moving into something where I did not have a deep understanding of the work that my people did. And so I had to change my mindset with leadership. Because generally, you know, if you're a patrol deputy, you move into a sergeant role, well, you've been a patrol deputy. You know what they go through, you know the steps they have to take, you're an expert on patrol. And the same with like a patrol lieutenant and even maybe a patrol captain. But stepping into that role, you know, when it comes to DNA analysis, obviously I don't know how to do that. And same with the other labs, IT, evidence, I kind of had a little grasp on that. But I had to take a step back and look at what I could do for them. And I may not be able to provide the technical advice. However, I could maybe smooth out the obstacles they had in their way. You know, what do you need? What are the tools that I can get you? How can I help you? And can you teach me enough about your job that I can speak intelligently about it when we're trying to make strategic decisions as an agency as what direction that we're moving? So that was a awesome experience for me. And I really enjoyed my time. I learned a lot, and hope I was able to make a difference, you know, for them.
Absolutely.
Provide good leadership to them.
So you go from kind of the patrol side of things to suddenly you're probably dealing with forensics and chemists and you know, DNA, which the technology's rapidly, you know, developing along the way too. And so you went from probably having knowledge, you know, a mile deep and an inch wide to a mile wide and a mile deep.
Yeah, absolutely. But thankfully, I was surrounded by, you know, extremely competent people, but they were all happy to help. You know, even though I might not have the technical knowledge, you know, if you ask the questions, they'll teach you. So I joked that I learned enough to be dangerous.
That's right.
But had great people, had great relations with them, still carried on those relationships to today. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I love hearing about the journey that led you to the current role now, and I want to take a quick break from our sponsors, and then we want to dive into your current role and kind of everything that's under your umbrella now.
Sure.
We'll be right back with more local justice with Captain Reed here shortly. After a car accident, everything feels overwhelming. Your injuries, your job, the insurance companies contacting you before you even understand what happened. And you deserve someone who knows how to navigate these situations. A law firm who has handled thousands of injury cases across our region. Elrod Pope has been helping injured people for more than 45 years. If you have been hurt, call Elrod Pope. We will help you get back on your feet.
We know the type. You like to start early, finish late, make lemon squares, and make payments to the college fund from anywhere in the house. We know you rely on Comporium for the things you rely on most, like a view of the backyard. That's just a bunny, and hundreds of channels to watch, whenever you want. So you may think of us as just your internet company, but we're more like the I didn't know they could do all that company. Comporium, always ready.
Coke Zero is now Coke Zero Sugar, with great Coke taste. Some people were excited to hear the news, some were skeptical. So we're not gonna have the star of the show you're watching come out and say, "You'll love it." No special jingle written by this week's hottest pop star. No famous internet celebs who happen to be holding the label just so. Okay, maybe just one little pour shot. The only thing that will make you believe Coke Zero Sugar has great Coke taste is trying it yourself. Ice cold Coke Zero Sugar. Try one today.
Being there for someone in their time of need is what Green Funeral Home has done compassionately for 4 generations. It's a privilege we take very seriously.
We believe each life should be honored and remembered by family and friends. Whether you choose traditional burial in our chapel or another venue, or cremation provided by our on-site crematory, we will help guide you through each step to ensure your needs are met.
We are also available to discuss pre-planning. Peace of mind that you have helped your loved one by making those difficult decisions.
When the need arises, our family is here for your family.
Welcome back to Local Justice. I'm attorney Ben Leader with Elrod Pope Law Firm, and today I'm honored to have with us a very special guest, Captain Jonathan Reed of the York County Sheriff's Office. Captain Reed, thank you so much for being with us and for your time this morning.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Want to shift gears. We've talked about your journey to your current role as captain. Want to hear a little bit more about the Criminal Investigations Division and what all falls under that umbrella.
Sure. So in April of last year, Sheriff Breeden gave me the opportunity to come back to investigations. I'd worked in it before as an investigator and then in a leadership role as a lieutenant, so it seemed to be a natural fit. So I came back to investigations. That division is comprised of some specialized units, so it's the property crimes unit, violent crimes, special victims unit. I have the sex offender registry, I have an intelligence unit, and I kept digital forensics from the, when I came over from the technical service. I brought digital forensics because they handle internet crimes against services, or internet crimes against children investigations, ICAC investigations. So they're detectives, and so it seemed to naturally fit within the investigative division. I also have victim services, and some of our officers are assigned to the multi-jurisdictional drug enforcement unit that the county has, and so I handle the administrative portion of their supervision.
Wow, so much to unpack there. We
Yes.
could spend the entire show just talking about
sir.
any one of those buckets that fall under you, but really important work in each and every one of those categories. You know, I have to imagine technology is something you're passionate about just based on kind of your passion for that role and everything that's encompassed with it. And I'm sure in your time there, the technology side of things has drastically changed over the last 20 years.
It has.
If we kind of compare the investigations today to when you first started your career, you know, walk us through kind of how technology's changed and how it's helped y'all job become, you know, easier.
Sure. So even starting with our patrol deputies, every patrol deputy and all of my investigators, they have body cameras. So a lot of times when we're reviewing a case that comes to us, that's one of the things that we start with is reviewing the body cam, so we have a full picture of what happened, which is something that you didn't have 15, 20 years ago. Virtually every case involves a cell phone now. Because there's just, if you think about your cell phone, you have all the details of your life are in there. All the calls, texts, anything that might be related to an investigation as to what happened, the when, why, where, and how, a lot of times it's contained in that cell phone, or at least a part of it is. And I have the digital forensics unit, which is involved in downloading phones and extracting information from those. So every case involving a cell phone in our intelligence unit, they're taking tasks that might have used to take a detective days, piecing together links between, how is this person related to that person, and using technology, they're able to do what took days and now do that in minutes sometimes in some cases. So technology has in some ways made our life a little bit more difficult,
Sure.
just because there's just a vast amount of data that you have to comb through. But it's also, on the flip side, augmented our investigations because we have tools that are able to parse through that data and give us information back in readable reports that a detective can then use in a timely manner to go out and solve cases.
And do you think it's helped keep y'all safe as well, like things like drones and things like that, where historically y'all may have had to put boots on the ground going into certain environments, and now
Sure.
you may be able to get a better view without having to put as many officers' safety in jeopardy?
Absolutely. We use drones to potentially canvass a target house that we may be looking at to get an idea of the picture that we're going in. And then, not just in investigations, but law enforcement in general, a big push is the drone as first responder programs, which is coming onto the scene. And I think it's gradually becoming more affordable for agencies to afford. But, the concept of that is that you have drones that are set up in strategic locations around your jurisdiction that when you have a call for service can respond. And potentially what was getting reported as a dangerous situation may be someone that doesn't have a gun, has a walking stick, and is walking around a sidewalk, for example, which prevents a unnecessary escalation before officers get there, because as they're responding to clear the call, a drone was able to get there much sooner and provide that information to the officers to avoid an unnecessary situation. Same thing for us on, if, like I mentioned, going on a target house, we're able to get that picture of what we're walking into first, which provides us necessary details before we go out there.
That's great, and I imagine the drones too can probably get images of things very quickly, and if something were to be moved or changed before
absolutely.
y'all could arrive, perhaps that drone can capture that image,
Yeah.
and preserve, potential evidence that is no longer there.
Correct. Yes, sir.
What about artificial intelligence? Has that become part of the industry yet, or is that bleeding into things?
That is absolutely becoming a part of it. Virtually every vendor that's approaching us now is integrating AI into something that they're doing, whether it's going through, like I mentioned, cell phone records, using AI to go through vast amounts of data that used to take us days to go through. It can go through and look if we're looking for a specific item or message, or just for example, it can do that very quickly. It also provides that link analysis, like I was talking about, going through incident reports. If we submit tons of incident reports in order to get a picture of crime trends, for example, it can do that in minutes. And those are just some of the examples. They're virtually endless.
Right.
And then a big push is real-time intelligence. When we have officers that are going out to a hot call, like a violent incident, or let's say an escaped person, it's able to provide us information very quickly that we're able to rely on to get officers to the right locations and to act safely.
That's fascinating. Well, I love hearing, I know it comes at a cost, obviously, but I love hearing that it's making the department so much more efficient, and it can help with safety too.
Yes, sir.
A lot of good things coming down the road, I think.
Yep.
We're going to take another quick break from our sponsors, and when we come back to our final segment, I really want to talk about some of the high pressure side of things that's associated with criminal investigations. And I know decisions have to be made quickly, and leadership's critically important there. And I know you've built quite a reputation for that, for your work in that role. And so we'll be right back with more Local Justice with Captain Reed, and look forward to continuing the conversation. I wish everyone came with a warning label, because if you could predict a car accident, you would probably stay home that day. But accidents are never planned, and the moments after are confusing. You don't need a warning label. You need a law firm who knows how to handle this. A law firm who has helped people in South Carolina through injury cases for decades. If you've been hurt, call Elrod Pope. We'll help you understand your options and get moving in the right direction.
Coke Zero is now Coke Zero Sugar, with great Coke taste. Some people were excited to hear the news, some were skeptical. So we're not going to have the star of the show you're watching come out and say, "You'll love it." No special jingle written by this week's hottest pop star. No famous internet celebs who happen to be holding the label just so. Okay, maybe just one little pour shot. The only thing that will make you believe Coke Zero Sugar has great Coke taste is trying it yourself. Ice cold Coke Zero Sugar. Try one today.
When a catastrophe hits, it can be a very stressful time for you. When you have trees on your house, when you have trees on your cars, and you don't know what to do, you call us.
We're not a 1-800 number, we're an 803 number. We've been in business for over 60 years because we take care of our clients. That means taking care of them during claim situations.
We're not 9 to 5, we're 24/7. We're gonna be there when you need us most. Gill Insurance, your local auto owner's agent. Understanding business is how we do business.
Welcome back to Local Justice. I'm Ben Leader with the Elrod Pope Law Firm, and today we've got with us Captain Jonathan Reed of the York County Sheriff's Office. Captain Reed, thank you again for your time and this really important conversation that I find to be very fascinating. You mentioned all these different categories and departments that fall under your department, and it was overwhelming to hear each and every one of those, because there's so much encompassed in everything. Obviously, you can't do all that alone. Tell us a little bit about kind of the leadership structure, and obviously you have to rely on some very talented people to be able to execute and oversee all of these various departments reporting to you.
Sure. So we have a chain of command that's set up. Captain, and then I have 3 lieutenants that are under me, and they have sergeants that report to them. And kind of those sergeants are some of the most critical components of that, because they're working on that line level with those officers. And they each have specialized training that they've received over the years that kind of make them experts in their particular field. And that's so important for me, because managing that many different components of investigations, there's no way for me to know everything. I can't be an expert in it all. And I have officers that are specialize in multiple areas. I've got, for example, a guy that's a polygraph examiner. He's also a fire investigator. I have folks that sit on as federal task force officers, so are also helping with federal investigations. The director of our intel units works with the FBI, so occasionally is handling terrorism and extremism incidents. Wow. And there's no way for me to be able to be an expert in all of that, so I have to rely on them. And I'm blessed, fortunate to have those people in those positions because I can trust them, I can rely on them, and that makes my job so much easier.
Absolutely, and we've talked with Captain Stoneburner a little bit about just the recruiting and the training, and what helps build the culture over there, and allowing y'all to land such great, talented individuals. And clearly you got to have good people to be able to oversee as much as you're overseeing, and so that's great to hear. Yeah,
and we invest heavily in training for our folks because it's really important. Before, when a new detective comes on board, before they ever go out on calls, before they're assigned any major cases, you may have heard of field training officer program. So we have a training program that we've built for our investigators to make sure that they check all those boxes, that a supervisor signs off on it. They're assigned a mentor to make sure that they know what they're doing before they go out. And nothing prepares you completely for when you respond, because we can try to give you as much as we can, but there's always those outlier cases that this is something we haven't dealt with before. But we try to give them at least that base foundation, and then build on that with additional specialized training that prepares them even further.
And I know you specifically have developed quite an impressive reputation for having calm leadership during critical incidents, and when a major case or crisis unfolds. What type of mindset do you have to have? I know part of it's got to be training that allows you to do that, but part of it's just got to be some sort of just inherent, mindset that you have that, allows you to thrive in that environment.
I think a big part of it's training, but the larger part of it's the experience, I think. Just because I've been, if you could say blessed, fortunate to be exposed to a lot of critical incidents. And so I'm able to draw upon that. It's very easy, when you're responding out, and I don't always do it perfectly. I'm human just like anybody else, but I try to make sure that I take a step back because you want to jump in and you want to work, but you have to make sure that you have that 30,000-foot view and are directing the resources that are needed. And like I said, I have really great people, and so I have to remember, hey, I have people that I can rely on that can help me with this. I don't have to do it by myself. So taking that step back is, I think, very important, and looking at it that way.
And I know that investigators, can often have a lot on their shoulders, working long hours, very difficult cases, heavy situations, dealing with families and victims at the same time. How do you and your team, look after each other's wellness and, really being able to take a step back and stay focused during those environments?
I think that's where the leadership is important. The folks that I have under me, they work directly with those officers, and we're fortunate in that criminal investigations, we all work very closely together. We have some people that are kind of spread out around the county, but generally we're working very close, and we have those relationships that are built. So even if I don't necessarily pick up on that somebody may be struggling with something, the leadership that's in place will oftentimes, pick up on that, and then we have a wellness program at the agency, and then we try to offer that support just individually. If somebody's going through something, we like to think of the sheriff's office as a family, and we try to look after each other like we would our family.
And when you conclude some of these, or successfully conclude a lot of these investigations that may go on for weeks, months, some even years, I imagine, do y'all have the opportunity to really, soak it in and enjoy the moment of that success, or is it really just kind of on to the next one a lot of times?
We will briefly enjoy, but the cases don't stop coming in. So fortunately, it's kind of back to work, but we do try to celebrate our detectives. When they do an exceptional job on a case, we have an awards program with the sheriff's office. And sometimes all it is hey, you did a really good job on that, and sometimes that means more to a detective than an award, just the acknowledgement. I know it did to me when I was a detective, so we try to kind of keep that tradition alive and acknowledge the good work, the hard work. We know that our folks are working extremely hard, probably harder than they've ever worked before. There's a lot expected out of them, both from the agency and from the public. Sure. They're up to the task, but we try to recognize when they have gone above and beyond what they were just required to do.
And there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. I think one of the biggest misconceptions in the public sometimes is that nothing's being done, when really y'all are really doing a lot behind the scenes that you can't come out and publicly say, hey, here's everything that's going on. And so a lot of times, you know, people just need to kind of stay patient and just know that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than they may realize. Is that fair?
It is, and you know, and some of that's communication. You know, we try to communicate with families, you know, because when it's happening to you, you want something done yesterday. Right. You know, and so we want to make sure that we communicate that, hey, we are working on this, but every, you know, case deserves attention, and we have to prioritize because there are so many cases to what needs to be worked on today, what can be worked on next week, we may be waiting on something, and some of it's out of our control. Right. You know, if it's something we're having to send legal process off to a company to provide whatever it is, some of that rests with the company, and we don't have any control over that. But that's where I think the communication part, and we have a great relationship with our community here. Absolutely. I think we have a lot of support throughout the county, and at least that's been my experience. So that is one benefit, and one great thing about working here at York County is the relationship we have with the community. So you pair that great relationship with the extremely hard work by very talented people within our division, and usually things work out okay.
That's right, and I think trust is really the foundation of that community relationship, and y'all have done a
Absolutely.
great job fostering that. One last question for you before we wrap up. For anyone out there watching today who may be considering a career in law enforcement or specifically in investigations, what advice would you have for them?
So I'd say a couple things, you know, especially for the youth of our society, make good decisions now. Those decisions will become very important later on as you're trying to move into especially at the sheriff's office. We have very high standards, so it's important to choose the right friends. You know, there's that saying that you're the sum of your 5 closest friends, yep. And I think we have found that to be true. So I think that's important. The other thing is we're just regular people. You know, there's nothing that special about us. We're regular people that have decided to serve. We will take good people and make them into good police officers. You can teach somebody how to work a crime scene. What you can't teach is integrity, ethics, morals, all of those things. So if you have that, you know, consider a career in law enforcement. If you want to serve, then the sheriff's office may be a place for you. Give us a shot, and we can teach you all of those other things.
I love that. Well, Captain Reed, thank you for joining us today and for sharing the insight on the work your team does, Absolutely. Often behind the scenes. Criminal investigations are often complex, they're demanding, and it's clear that the work of your division plays a vital role in keeping York County citizens safe. So we appreciate you and your 20 years of service to York County, and we look forward to seeing your journey continue.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on it.
Absolutely. The pleasure's mine, and thank you to the viewers for tuning in. Special thanks to Captain Reed for joining us today. We'll see you next time on More Local Justice. Stay safe out there. Thank you. So when a client first comes into our office, they're dealing with very painful injuries. They're trying to provide for their families at the same time. You can just see the sense of anxiety, the grief, the worry on their face as soon as they walk in the door. One of the first things we do is we try to alleviate that concern and take that weight off their shoulder and put it on our plate. We see people immediately leave here from the first consultation. I can already see a sense of relief because they know that they've got a team helping them now, and it's no longer just their problem.
Watch out, Doc.
It's the 42nd Great Easter Egg Classic, Thursday, April 2nd.
It's free.
Cherry Park gates open at 2. The first of 10 exciting runs starts at 3 p.m. with 30,000 eggs and 2,000 prizes.
And meet my friend Bo Bunny.
Presented by Rock Hill PRT, the YMCA of Upper Palmetto, and your favorite OTS media stations. Go to EasterEggClassic.com for all the details. The Great Easter Egg Classic,
where every bunny is a star.
We know the type. You like to start early, finish late, make lemon squares, and make payments to the college fund from anywhere in the house. We know you rely on Comporium for the things you rely on most, like a view of the backyard. That's just a bunny, and hundreds of channels to watch, whenever you want. So you may think of us as just your internet company, but we're more like the I didn't know they could do all that company. Comporium, always ready.